So I got this awesome fabricator buddy, Phil, Spoolin' Phil on Instagram. And I get this message and he says, hey, you want to go on the Hoonigans, this versus that? I'm like, hell yeah. So he says, check your messages. There's some stuff in there. You need to just send them the info they're requesting and they'll probably have you come down. So I did. And just told me that they want to have me down there. So it's Friday. I got to be down there on Tuesday. So I got some prep to do here. It's going to be drag racing. I don't know what I'm racing. But it's going to be on an unprepped surface, just like the street. So I need to get this thing set up to run on the street the best I can. The tires I run on, these ET Street R's, these 325, 3518s, they're pretty good on the street, but they really don't work from a dig, from a dead stop. And this is going to be drag racing from a dig. Heads up, there's someone standing there, the arms up in the air. They're going to drop their arm and say go, and we just got to go from a stop. This car wasn't ever designed for that. That's not what I built it for. So, you know, it's not that good at it, but yeah, it's a Hoonigan, so I want to get out there and try it. So I do have some drag tires. I got full slicks and skinnies. So I'm going to put them on and try and get it set up for that. I've never run those on the street. Well, I've never even run them at the track. So I got to do some experimenting with them. I just finished installing a line lock so I can do some burnouts. Turn that ebrake off. Neutral. So I just put a line lock on it so I can try and do some burnouts. I mean, I can do burnouts without a line lock, but they usually end up with me drifting sideways or sliding sideways, and it's usually not pretty. So I'm thinking I can put a line lock on it. Oh yeah, this is how I get the car out of the trailer, in case anybody was wondering. Ghost ride it, parking brake it. So I got a line lock on it. I'm gonna try and test those slicks out. Plus I figured I'd show how I fit these big tires on this car, because a lot of people have been asking about it. I don't know if you can see on this angle. I'm gonna lift it up. So I'm gonna get the car in the shop. Go over the suspension a bit, make some changes on it, and test out the slicks. Hopefully I do good at the show. See how it goes. So people often ask me, how do I fit these 18 by 10s on this car under the stock body? I've run a 285 3018 up front. Right now I'm running a Yokohama 265 3518, which is actually wider than a normal 265. They run extra wide. In the back right now I've got these 325 35 18 Mickey Thompsons, which are like super fat. They're like too fat. They don't even fit under the body, but I need them for when I'm doing some straight line stuff, and they work pretty good. But people ask, how do we fit these big wheels on there? Because they don't just fit. There's a lot that went into making them fit on this car. So starting from the top, that's where I'll start on this, because that's where I started in my mind. I had to figure out, how can I get the wheels under the car, under the car. So my idea was to narrow the track. So the wheels originally sat here. How can I pull them in so I can run a fatter wheel and tire, so that would take up the distance I lost when I narrowed the track. So what I did was, got camber plates on the front here. Use this light here, you can see. And I just have them set to maximum negative camber. This is as far as they'll go inward. So what that did was that moved the top of the wheel as far in as it could possibly go, all the way in. And I use MCS coilovers. They have remote reservoirs, so I mounted those right here. There's the canisters. I can adjust the compression. I can adjust the rebound. So basically, how hard it will compress when I hit bumps, how hard it'll hit that, and then how hard or how easily it'll go back. That's the rebound. So when you're doing different things like drag racing or road racing, they both want you need a totally different adjustment for either one of those because you're doing different things. In drag racing, you want the weight to transfer to the back of the car. In road racing, you want the thing to stay pretty level and flat. So I have it set for drag racing type stuff right now. Basically softer in the front, stiffer in the back, but with the correct adjustment on the compression and rebound to make it transfer the weight and kind of stay that way as I'm accelerating. So as far as suspension settings, I run the front at 3.5 degrees negative camber. You can see with the wheels off the ground that the wheel's still angled inward. And it basically just rides on the inside of the tire when I'm going straight. But when I hit the turns, it'll roll up onto the tire itself, and I get wear all the way to the edges here when I'm pushing it. So track type alignment. Also, all that negative camber really helped me get it under the fender. And as it is, at some points it'll touch that marker light, but I think at this point, I think by now it's clearanced itself, so that's good. Now, so that's 3.5 degrees negative camber in the front I run. For drag racing stuff, I've adjusted the rear to 0 camber, so that the tire sits flat, and I get solid contact patch all the way across. You can see where it's this has been spinning, so the tire looks like this, but it pretty much gets the whole tire. So when it's on the ground, it's set at 0 camber. When I hit it, it'll squat a little bit, and then I'll get a little bit of, a little negative camber gets introduced into the alignment, and you can see it kind of wears a little bit more on the inside than it does on the outside, but for the most part, that's pretty good. Some guys will even go with some positive camber to counter that. That way, when they hit it, it'll roll flat right on the tire. But this works pretty good for me. And kind of see the suspension down here, so I'll go back to the front. So as far as alignments go, max negative camber up on top. And then when I want to do my alignment, I have to do everything from the bottom. So if I want to get the wheel to be at the right camber, I need to adjust this lower control arm in and out. But I also need to adjust this it's kind of like a radius arm. I'm not sure what it's called actually. But I have to adjust this and this to get that wheel to go in and out where it needs to be. So alignments are a little tricky on this car. Another thing I ran into with having these really fat wheels is when I go full lock on the steering, it'll actually hit the body and hit the sway bar. So Veris Engineering made these little spacers. It's kind of hard to show you, but little spacers that go inside the rack and limit how much the rack can go this way or the other way. So now when I go to full lock, it stops just before it hits the body. So now this has kind of gotten rusty because it's not hitting there anymore. And I disconnected the front sway bar recently just to see how it might help with drag racing stuff. Seems to help a little bit. Get that weight transfer to the back. For the steering, it's more SPL stuff. Everything's solid, spherical ends. There's really not much rubber left on the front of this car. Really, there isn't any at all. Got this these spacers here. This is a bump steer. I think it was a bump steer eliminator. I forget what they called it, but what it does is it keeps the tie rod straight. So when the car's on the ground, this is nice and straight. If it was mounted where it was originally designed to be, with the car on the ground, these would be angled upwards. And then when you hit dips and stuff, it'll really, affect the steering. It can make the steering kind of jump, one direction or the other. So it's called bump steer, and you don't really want that. So by lowering the mounting point down, it keeps this nice and level, so it has the best geometry for the steering. Same with these guys here. More spacers to get everything just where it needs to be. I'm just going to show you up here. I guess that's about it, really. Clutch in there. This is a quick time bell housing, solid steel, so that I don't lose my legs if the clutch comes ripping through the floor. Aluminum bell housings, just like butter if a clutch is coming apart and explodes in there. This steel should keep me mostly safe. The headers, all the way back here, I wrapped them in DEI header wrap. Seems to have helped. Got some chassis stiffeners here. Basically, this was an eBay kit I found. There was a company called Agency Power that made chassis braces, and I think some eBay company came along and copied them. I don't even think Agency Power is around anymore, but I found these on eBay. They were blue, so I bought them. They matched the car. It wasn't very expensive, and they're light. They're aluminum, so it's, you know, the more stiffness, the better, I think. So it's got this for the steering rack here, and then there's another one that can't really see it because it's under this cover, but it connects up front here, and then it, I don't know if you can see it, probably can't. It travels all the way back here to the subframe. So moving to the back to the back here. Suspension stuff I've done. It's all SPL again, and the same thing. Only for to get max camber, max negative camber in the back on the top, I've got these Racer X upper control arms, and they're adjustable up here, so it lets me pull that upper ball joint in to get, you know, all the negative camber I can get. In fact, I didn't have enough to fit these big fat tires in here because I really wanted to get them in as far as I could go, so I had to actually shave down the end of these arms. I took about a 1/4 inch or so off of them so I could get that ball joint in more, and I mean, that's really all I can do with this until I come and like mini tub it, cut out some of the frame and reinforce it up there. It's pretty close. This is a full droop, so with it on the ground, it's not quite as bad. I don't know if you guys can see the gap, but I got about a 1/4 inch there when the wheels are all the way hanging. When the car sits on the wheels, it becomes more like a 1/2 inch clearance with these tires. Maybe I have a little bit less here, but it's enough. It doesn't rub. Tire looks good. So to do the alignment, I don't touch these up top. I do everything from the bottom. So I adjust the lower control arm in or out, and this toe link in and out. These are traction arms. This is just to get the wheel kind of forward or backward where it's supposed to be. Another thing I added back here was this these MCA traction mod, they call it. This bracket it's called the traction mod. What it does is it lowers these arms down so that there isn't too much angle. You don't want to angle on these guys. You want them more straight to get a better bite. So it moves the mounting point down. But the problem I ran into on that is that I raised the subframe. So I took the subframe out. I took all the bushings that were in it and spacers, took those out, added aluminum bushings inside, and actually moved it upwards about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch upwards. And what that did was it gave me a better angle on my axles. So looking at them right now, you can see the axles sit kind of straight almost, and the wheels are off the ground. So imagine like when the wheels are on the ground, the weight of the car's on it, these axles actually angle upwards, and you don't want that. That's not good. So you want these guys as straight as you can have them when it's in kind of like a neutral position, stationary, you know. When you hit the throttle, when you romp on it, it's going to squat more, and then you're going to get more angle. So you raise the subframe up, and then what that does is it moves this whole assembly upwards, and you get a better, straighter angle on these axles to help prevent breaking the axles. So that's that. Another thing I ran into when I put these big fat wheels on it is it gets a little close to the fender up there, especially with zero camber. They're sticking out about an inch and a half. So I made these jounce bumpers, these little spacers You can call them jounce bumpers. Basically, it's just a rubber disc that I cut out with a hole saw. I can pull one out. They're in there pretty good. I press them in. It's kind of hard to do it with one hand, but I can kind of take it out. So I took a hole saw and made these little spacers. And what it does, it just goes around the shaft there, the piston shaft, and if the car happens to bottom out, and I've got enough in here so that it's just at the point where it's gonna not touch the body. So not great for, you know, road course stuff, because you want all the travel you can get. You don't want to just bottom out, but I'm not doing that lately. I'm doing the straight line stuff, so it works out okay. Saves the body of the car, and then I just take them out that easily. When I go to the track, put on my different wheels that tuck, I get all the travel, all the suspension travel. Back here I do have a little bit of rubber. This is the stock rubber bushing in the knuckle, and then whatever this is made of, I think it's probably rubber too. That's it for rubber. Everything else is solid spherical. The differential got these solid bushings from Salasco Racing. I'm not sure if they're making these anymore, but they work perfect for what I needed, because I had a solid mount. This diff kit from Full Blown Motorsports came with a solid front box steel mount, but the rear still used the rubber bushings, so that was allowing it to kind of move, and it actually broke the mount first time around. So I got a new mount in the front, and I got these solid guys in the back, so now there's no movement and there's no problem. This is a Ford 8.8 differential, Full Blown Motorsports, and I had to actually put a catch can for it because it'll vent a little bit of oil. It's got a breather up there. You can't even see it. It's up there, and it vents to this catch can. So this will catch anything that happens to spit out, and then it'll just pull it back in. That's what it looks like from underneath. There's some fat tires. I also went and disconnected this little splash shield here, because I needed a little bit more room back here, not for these tires, but for my drag tires. When I put these guys on there, it was practically touching the body, so I undid this splash shield and just kind of zip tied it back. And when I pulled it back, it's pretty tight. It actually moved this piece of the body out and back. So, you know, I think it's just a drag racing thing. When I go to the track or whatever, I'll put the fasteners back in, and when I go back to road racing type stuff, I'll put that all back in and just cut that zip tie out. But it helped you know, save my fender, my body, my bumper cover from hitting the tire. I don't want to ruin that just for some drag racing. What else can I show you here? So I recently added a line lock to this, because when I'm at a drag strip and I'm trying to do a burnout, and I can do it with my with, you know, just dump the clutch and grab the brake, but it's a little tricky, it's a little tough, and I just wanted to have a line lock on it so I can make it easier, a little bit less, one less thing to worry about. You just hit the button, lock the brakes, and dump the clutch and do your burnout. So I need to put these wheel spacers on for these drag tires I've got. I'll show you why. But so these are hub-centric spacers, which means when you put them on, they fit tightly on the hub. If they didn't, they would be wobbling around, and what you do to fix that is you get a hub-centric ring, and you put the ring on it, and it'll take up the gap in between, you know, your wheel or your wheel spacer. So let me get these guys on here, and I don't have a friend to help hold the brakes, and I need to torque these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the line lock. I use a line lock to hold the brakes as I torque the wheels, as I torque the lug nuts. Okay. So how that's going to work. Okay, so how that's going to work is I'm going to open the door here. I'm going to turn the car on. So I use these, I found this JDM bezel, switch bezel. I guess over in Asia or wherever else these cars are sold, they have adjustable headlights. You can adjust them up and down. You don't have that here. This was just a dummy hole and didn't even have this extra hole. I only had 2 switches in here before. Now I've got 4. So I've got 2 for the line lock, just for safety. So if I turn it on, it's still not on until I hit this one, or, you know, like I got to have them both on. So now the line lock is activated. I'm going to hit the brakes. Lock that brake down. Lock that brake down, and then torque this thing. You can see the wheel's not moving. The rotor doesn't move. The whole hub doesn't move. So it's holding the brakes right now. That up. So that's that. Now that's in place. Then I'm going to put the skinny on it. So hub centric ring. So you got to have that. Otherwise the wheel won't fit tightly. So here's an example. So by the way, these wheels, these are some 17 by 9 inch Koenig wheels I bought from Summit Racing. I tried to find some wheels that would clear the brakes, and I ended up buying like 5 or 6 different wheels, and this was the only wheel that I found that I could get to clear the rear brakes without messing with the wheel. The front, though, I still needed to do a lot of work because the front brakes are actually bigger. So what I did was I had these wheels cut down and narrowed, and you can see how that was done here. So same wheel. And what the guy did was he cut the barrel. He actually cut the drop about there halfway, and then cut the wheel, and he married the two together. Just welded them back together again. And so then I had, you know, nice skinny wheels, so I could run these little skinny bias ply fronts. But I still had a problem. They wouldn't clear the calipers. They were close, but they didn't clear. So then I figured out if I put a spacer on it, the wheel would clear. So here's how they fit without a hub centric, just so you can see what happens. You put the wheel on, they wobble around. A lot of people put wheels on the car and they don't have a hub centric, and they have vibrations and they don't know why. That's why. At least that's one reason why. It could be other things, but a lot of times it's that. So you put the ring on it. You put the ring on it, the right size ring, and then when you put the wheel on, it's tight, doesn't move. Stays right where it's supposed to be. So let me snug this wheel down. That's that. I can torque this guy too. So yeah, so line lock, more explanation for it. You flip the switch, you push the brake pedal down, and then the wheel doesn't move. So then you can do your burnout because the back wheel will move. So your brakes are only holding the fronts. The back is not being, it's not using the brakes, so it's just the fronts. So they stay still, and you do your burnout, and then just flip the switch, turn it off, you can roll out of your burnout. Usually you're supposed to have a momentary switch, but I didn't, a little pressed for time, so I've just got 2 on-off switches. I'll probably go back and change it to a momentary at some point just to be safe, because you don't want that to ever get stuck or accidentally put in an on position when you're driving, because then you could crash. You'd have a bad accident. So that's kind of the reason why I have 2 switches. At least I have some safety. See, if I If I turn that off, you can, that light's still on, it's kind of hard to see it. But I turn off the one switch, and that guy spins now. Turn that off too. Okay. All right. So that front wheel's done. Let's do the back. Already got these a little bit loose, just to make this go quicker. Take this big meat out of here. Now let's look at this compared to this. So this is a 27-inch tall tire. This car usually runs like a 24 3/4-inch tall tire. So this is a 27, and this is a 28. I run a 28 because in a drag, like a bias ply drag racing tire, slick, they don't make any 26s. 26 would be the ideal size. They don't make 26s anymore in a 17. So I got stuck with the 28, which is great for traction because it's just bigger, you have a bigger contact patch, but it's too big for this car. I mean, it really is. You can see the size difference in the width. These tires are just super wide, but these are stickier. Now to look in here, you can see what I've done. Grab this light. In the back, I had to do quite a bit. So back here, I had to beat the hell out of this frame rail because it was too close to the tire, to the 325s. The 305s fit. In fact, I could fit the 305s in here with the splash shield in place. But once I put the 325s, these big fat guys here, I had to take the plastic splash shield out. I had to really bang it in here. I had to bend this tab down. I had to do that for the 305s. This thing used to stick way out here. So I just flattened it out there. I had to move this ebrake cable bracket, just bent it upwards. I did not have to mess with the brake line for the 305s, but again, with the 325s, they're so much fatter, they stick in about almost an inch more. I had to undo the brake line, and I just did some nice soft bends to it and just moved it in, you know, wrapped some hose around it and some zip ties. And again, it's not a permanent thing, it's a temporary thing. I could just put everything back and reform the line back to where it goes, but it's actually okay like this. It doesn't look the greatest, but it works. So I banged it in here, bent this guy down, moved that guy. Back to this traction mod thing. So it was designed to bolt here, and it had a piece that came under the subframe and bolted to the actual subframe. When I raised the subframe up, that wasn't going to work anymore because this guy actually moved up higher than where we're supposed to be. So I had to modify that bracket, that drop bracket, and I just welded it to the subframe. So, you know, I'm not going back with this car, so that's fine. Up here, I pounded in here some. I don't think I needed to, but I did. Eventually what will happen is I'll probably cut this out, because I will need to cut it out to get about another ½ inch or maybe even an inch. Just has to, I might have to move the upper shock mount in a little bit, and I'll cut out this area some. Then I can move that wheel in more, and that would kind of in a sense be a mini tub. This thing. Just I need more room here and here, and this is just sheet metal, so it's no big deal. The only really major piece is this, so I could cut it and then just put some solid steel in there and it should be good. Back here, I had to pound it in some here to clear those 28s. They were touching back here. You can see where it wore into the splash shield a little bit, and they touch a little bit here. They've been clearancing themselves a little bit here. No big deal. It's cool. I had to cut this sheet metal out right here. It was there was sheet metal that came all the way to here, and the tire was actually contacting it to put a little slice in the tire. So I shaved that down. You can see my my jounce bumpers. A little better shot of these guys. These rubbers. So depending on the tire, if I'm, well, I mean, I just leave them like this. I could, if I had a bigger tire, smaller tire, I wanted less travel or more travel, I could take them out or add more. But when I have my my normal size tires on here, the 295s, I don't even need to have these guys, because the tires they'll tuck under. I'll go back to 2.5 degrees negative camber, and it'll just suck it right in. It just goes right in. Another shot of the Racer X Upper control arm is where the adjustment is for that. Hopefully you can see everything on the camera here. E-brake cable bracket, just bent it upwards. I did not have to mess with the brake line for the 305s, but again with the 325s, there's so much fatter, they stick in about almost an inch more. I had to undo the brake line, and I just did some nice soft bends to it and just moved it in, you know, wrapped some hose around it and some zip ties. And again, it's not a permanent thing, it's a temporary thing. I could just put everything back and reform the line back to where it goes, but it's actually okay like this. It doesn't look the greatest, but it works. So I banged it in here, bent this guy down, moved that guy. Back to this traction mod thing. So it was designed to bolt here, and it had a piece that came under the subframe and bolted to the actual subframe. When I raised the subframe up, that wasn't going to work anymore because this guy actually moved up higher than where we're supposed to be. So I had to modify that bracket, that drop bracket, and I just welded it to the subframe. So, you know, I'm not going back with this car, so that's fine. Up here, I pounded in here some. I don't think I needed to, but I did. Eventually what will happen is I'll probably cut this out, because I will need to cut it out to get about another ½ inch or maybe even an inch. Just has to, I might have to move the upper shock mount in a little bit, and I'll cut out this area some. Then I can move that wheel in more, and that would kind of in a sense be a mini tub. This thing. Just I need more room here and here. And this is just sheet metal, so it's no big deal. The only really major piece is this, so I could cut it and then just put some solid steel in there and it should be good. Back here, I had to pound it in some here to clear those 28s. They were touching back here. You can see where it wore into the splash shield a little bit, and they touch a little bit here. They've been clearancing themselves a little bit here. No big deal. It's cool. I had to cut this sheet metal out right here. It was there was sheet metal that came all the way to here, and the tire was actually contacting it to put a little slice in the tire. So I shaved that down. You can see my my jounce bumpers, a little better shot of these guys, these rubbers. So depending on the tire, if I'm, well, I mean, I just leave them like this. I could, if I had a bigger tire, smaller tire, I wanted less travel or more travel, I could take them out or add more. But when I have my my normal size tires on here, the 295s, I don't even need to have these guys, because the tires they'll tuck under. I'll go back to 2.5 degrees negative camber, and it'll just suck it right in. It just goes right in. Another shot of the Racer X upper control arm is where the adjustment is for that. Hopefully you can see everything on the camera here. So you put this guy on here, and very carefully have to put the wheel on, because there's very minimal clearance here. Again, I'm hitting everything trying to get this wheel on. So that's there. And if you look, you can see what kind of clearance I'm talking about here. There's like just like a couple sheets of paper clearance. In fact, if a rock gets in there, which it has, it shreds my my plasti dip paint job. So this is not something to run on the street. This is just for the drag strip, where hopefully there isn't a lot of garbage floating around. It's very tight in there. All right, so let me snug these guys down. Okay, so you can see how that looks. Takes up the whole opening pretty much. You see what zero camber does when the wheels are hanging too. They're kind of angled outwards. When it gets on the ground, it'll sit flat. Okay, well, it's getting kind of dark now. Let's see what this line lock does. Alright, well, let's see what I can do with some donuts. Practice a bit. trailer and see what I can do when I get there. It'll be fun. That's where we're racing. And that's where I'm racing right now.